You have a minute to talk about guns?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a qualified applicator license for the state. It's a pesticide license I got from the state. A very stringent test it took. It took a good amount of time to study. Lots about nematodes. So much in this test you make your head spin. But it was a very significant test. A lot of questions. Once you get the certification, you have to get every 2 years. You have to recertify. You got to go to seminars. I went to a seminar this week. You got to have 4 hours of laws and regs and so many hours of actual schooling to get your recertification, because I'm spraying these pesticides and these things they have the potential to be possibly deadly.
So you need to know what you're doing.
And there's constantly regulations coming out, and we're constantly trained on these regulations. A new regulation that came out last year was that you cannot spray within 1,000 feet of 1,000 yards, 1,000 feet of schools for restricted use pesticide. I don't use restricted use on it. However, I have to go through all that, and to spray this thing out of my gun that's toxic and deadly. Why is it so much? Why is it the other way around for guns? And I could be completely nuts. I could just go buy a gun tomorrow. I like that. I like that I have that continuity. It proves that I'm a well-trained person.
You know why there's not? Because there's no amendment that protects the right to use pesticides.
And people aren't there isn't somebody putting $55 million in elections blocking me from having to get that license and uphold it. But I think ultimately people would be safer if they had to go through something like that. It would prove the responsibility. That's just me. You were one of the. I guess what I'm saying is you were one of the first candidates of anyone running in this district to come out right after the shooting and make a statement on it. And it was a broad statement that something has to be different and something has to change, kind of like you've said. But it's a touchy issue in this district. It's a Second Amendment district, but it's also a farming district, and we've had some problems with guns here, which people wouldn't think that it would happen here.
Yeah, and we followed up that. I followed up that broad statement a couple days later with a video talking about it and talking about some of my priorities that I would bring with me to Washington to make sure that our federal regulations match the stringent gun safety regulations that we have here in California. And Aaron, the training issue, that's an issue that was brought to me by some folks on my advisory team that are big proponents of safe use of firearms. I'm getting advised on policy issues from people that agree with me on a lot of things and people that have different views on me than a lot of things. And gun owners are saying to me, hey, you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that we have licensing and safety training, and that becomes part of the system. And so for me, there's a lot of hope in that, because when we can come together and look at logical solutions to these problems, we can make some headway. But I'm a firm believer in evidence-based policy, and I think one of the first things that we need to do is overturn the Dickerson Amendment to make sure that we can fund the CDC to do gun safety research and prevention research.
Is that David Dickerson? Isn't that Trump's alias?
And in 1996, they passed that legislation to make sure that the CDC couldn't spend money on gun safety research, and so we need to do that. There's also a ton of things that we can do.
It's real common sense thing. Like Fix Nix is John Kasich's Republican, very behind that. To try to get a better background system. Banning
bump stocks, banning binary triggers. There's stuff like this that would be so easy, that have such broad support. Well, that we just need to get it done.
And I mean, let's lay our cards on the table here. There's a lot of Democrats that believe that guns should be abolished. There's a very strong belief system, not among very many Republicans certainly, but among very many Democrats. I'm not one of those Democrats. I don't think any of us here believe that it's the Second Amendment. It's enshrined in the Constitution, the rights to bear arms. But I mean, there are steps towards that, and those on the right would say, well, we can't have any steps towards any encroachment of those rights. And,
slippery slope, yeah.
But I mean, at a certain point, nobody can have a bazooka. No personal, individual in this country can have a tank. I mean, there are already limits. So shouldn't there be some common sense limits that could maybe additionally be imposed?
You can get a tank on eBay, actually.
So I grew up on a farm. I'm not sure if you knew that about me. And I grew up as part of a farming family. We safely and responsibly used firearms growing up. I remember there was one year that we had a herd of wild boar that were coming into the vineyard right when the wine grapes were ready to be harvested, and they were just decimating it. And we had to get a deprivation permit to get rid of, to abate, if you will, the 80 wild boar that were in
80 boar. Yeah.
We were going to the King City
yummy.
Food Bank. I know, right? I got as much carnitas as I wanted. But we were hauling whole hogs to the carnitas food bank every day, and we had livestock. I had cattle that we had to protect from coyotes and baby calves, and so I come from, this is the background that I come from, and the lens that I look at this issue with is making sure that we protect the right of farmers and ranchers and sportsmen to use the firearms that they need while keeping public safety front and center. And while we do those things at a federal level that we're already doing well here at a state level.
But I mean, you think about this perspective. I hear this argument a lot from the right about, well, the real reason the Second Amendment exists is to, protect us as individual citizens against government overreach, right? And like a bunch of people in the woods even with AR-15s are going to really take on the U.S. government, right? I mean, it's like, that seems so foolish to me. I mean, that is really an argument that anybody would make. I mean, there's much better arguments an argument for the Second Amendment than that we'd want to protect our rights as individuals against government overreach. I mean, come on, that battle was fought and lost a long time ago, right? I mean, we have a federal government that's in charge, right? I mean, we're citizens of the government, but in a sense, we're not going to overthrow the government as individuals, right? We're not going to do it that way with guns. It would never work.
Well, you look at it, Jefferson and the founding fathers were clear on this. They wanted the government to be there to protect people from the people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, the idea that you're going to a well-regulated militia.
People need to be protected from some people right now.
Well, I understand
so
that.
The government needs to come in and do the job.
Right. But I mean, we have government for that. We have police for that. Do individuals, should you or I have this idea that we're going to overthrow the government if the government overreaches? I mean, does that make sense? Is that an argument that makes sense to anybody?
It's alive and well. I don't know if it comes from a certain bringing up. I don't know if it's the tyrannical government thing. I really have never gotten that because I don't see how you're going to do it.
I mean, you do it in the ballot box.
Yeah, we're going to do it in November.
But I mean, you don't do it through being out in the woods with a bunch of.
You look at percentage of gun ownerships or gun ownership of people who have multiple weapons, and the percentages start to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Where you start to look and 20% of the people own a lot of guns, and it's kind of like 80% of the guns. That's a scary thing. So now who's that turns into a well-regulated militia to a not well-regulated militia of well, now this is a problem. So. But it hasn't been. They have their ways. They have the government they don't trust. But then, what happens? What happens when somebody gets a hold of those guns and from mental illness? What happens when somebody steals those guns? So to me, it was always you're going to get your hunting license. You're going to learn. You're going to be responsible, and that responsibility. So it's a great responsibility. Just like driving and different things where there's other people's lives at stake. Lots of auto thefts in our cities right now where guns are being taken out of cars. Don't leave your gun in the car. So it is a problem. There are too many guns. And really when people say, well, the problem is this, problem is that. No, the problem is easy access for people to have weapons. And then a bigger, I think a bigger issue to look at is money in politics. And this is the driving force behind why we can't get anything done.
Yeah, and that's a big, you mentioned it yourself. I mean, that really is a big divide right there, money in politics. And you're running, as you say, you're not taking any corporate money.
Beholden to no one.
Yeah, beholden to no one except for the constituents of District 1. I was about to say that besides the people who voted for me, but the fact of the matter is I am beholden to every single person who votes for me, and I will work to represent the interests of everyone who lives here, including Representative LaMalfa when he's back in Richville.
Yeah. Hopefully very soon.